Hey everyone, I enjoy interacting with you viewers through my YouTube comment section, and I do encourage all of you to speak up more. In fact, one of you fellow viewers, Sim J Song, has given me a deck list that he really wanted me to try out, and I looked at it and I said, this is exactly what I want to play. Last night I was pulling my hair out trying to make a Kate deck with Magnum Opus work. I got as far as putting self-modifying codes, clone chips, and clot inside, but just couldn't get past the hurdle of selecting a good breaker suite. Now that I have this deck list, let's give it a whirl and see what happens. My very first game with this deck, and I open with the perfect hand. In Mahjong, they call it the Heavenly Hand, referring to opening with a winning hand straight out of the gate. Why is it perfect? Well, my first turn will be to set up Hyperdriver and Patron. Click for a couple of credits so I can play Temujin next turn and liberate the full Temujin credits while getting more with Dirty Laundry and having more dirt to set up for my Magnum Opus when I do draw into it later with Patron. This is amazing! This is the combo they are looking for, and my opponent suitably reacts to it by seeing the Patron by icing up archives. So I don't really have a target other than server 1. So I'm going to direct Temujin at server 1, and then I'm going to make a run. So I don't access this run, but I do gain 2 cards, including a Diesel, which is just amazing, and another Dirty Laundry. My goodness, this is an amazing hand. Alright, so I have to decide which card I want to access first. If I access Psychic Field into Price Sack, I'm kind of done, but nope, it's Future Perfect to Price Sack. I lose a Dirty Laundry, that's the best thing to lose at that point. With one last click, I probably should clear the tag. What are you thinking of? Yes, clear the tag. Good boy. You don't want to get Patron trash. You don't want to get Temujin trash, but ooh, vote intimidation. That was a bait. Okay, so I guess I am taking one resource trash, trashes my Temujin, and we are back to square one. But I do have a good number of credits, Liberator of the Temujin, so I guess that should be fine. Oh, by the way, I've completely forgot to use the Hyperdriver. That was a big mistake. I needed the extra 3 clicks to get more mileage off the Temujin. So that was a mistake. I really should have remembered to use the Hyperdriver. And now it's a very awkward situation where I want to play the SMC from my hand, but I can't because I don't have enough memory to do so because I didn't use my Hyperdriver. So now I'm forced to mod in the dog instead. So next turn, I'll remember to use the Hyperdriver. And I'm going to bring out my Magnum Opus. With Temujin gone, I need another source of economy, and Magnum Opus is there for me. It is quite a huge down payment, which is why I want to get it at this point, because if I spend any more money installing anything else from my hand, I won't have the money to install Magnum Opus when the time comes. So, I get a bunch of money with Opus, with Hyperdriver, and I'm back in business. My opponent solidifies all centrals and puts something in server 1. I'm not too concerned over it because unadvanced remotes is not something that's very threatening against Jinteki. Now I'm going to poke around archives, force an ice res. Crick is fine at this point because there's nothing in the bin. Instead it's an Aiki. Now Aiki deals 2 net damage and it's a code gate, so I don't have the code gate solution. I'll need to take 2 net damage. I have 2 very valuable cards in my hand, Hyperdriver and Temujin, and since my opponent looks like he's going to kill me, I need the Deus Ex as well. So I do want to draw from Aiki and then take 2 net damage, which does snipe off a Deus Ex, which is very unfortunate. But I do keep the Temujin in hand, so I do have a lot of money, if need be. I also find myself a Beth curing Chang. Beth is gonna make me give me a lot of tempo this game. Now my opponent scores a Clue Retirement. He doesn't have any bad pup to remove. That is a very odd move. Again, you have to suspect that it's probably an archer that is waiting for me, but how awful is an archer? It's only 6 credits to break with strike. So as long as I run with at least 6 credits, I should be good. Alright. I didn't run with 6 credits there, that could have been a disaster, but we are safe for now, let's carry on. I keep slamming the hand because it feels like my opponent is flooded, which would explain why my opponent is trying to score the Clone Retirement, but nope, all I see is the same old Voter Intimidation, and I lose a lot of dog tokens this way. Well, I guess I'm going to get Voter Intimidated, which is why I also want to liberate money off my Temujin. My opponent does play the Voter. He intimidates me and gets rid of my Patron. That's my second Patron. I ditched my first patron. I ditched another copy of patron at the end of my turn, so now I'm out of patrons, which is very bad news. This was very bad planning by me. I should have kept the patron in my hand, knowing that my opponent is on voter intimidation. Lucky for me, I'm a jammy bastard. I find the patron on my next draw. The one patron left in my deck, I find it very quickly. So that patron should last me the rest of the game. But which server do I attack? Jinteki is very infamous rather, for its spiky code gates, and I don't really have a good code gate solution at this point. There's a Guardian Blade in my deck, but I don't have the memory to install SMC, because Astrolabe is nowhere to be found. I could use Sai, but Sai is only directable at one server, and again, I do not have the memory for Sai. So I'm basically forced to face check one of the eyes on R&D or server 1, and take whatever net damage that he throws, or whatever subroutines he throws at me with a code gate. In this case, however, it's not a code gate, it's a snowflake, so that's fine, we get through. And patron triggers, I draw a couple more cards, and this is where things get awkward with this deck. If you draw your cards in the wrong order, if you draw your big programs before you draw your memory, there's a Leprechaun, there are 2 Astrolabes in this deck, I haven't seen any of them, I'm in a bit of trouble. I can't play the Hyperdriver from my hand, can't play the SMC. So I'm basically stuck with just a Barrier Breaker and a Sentry Breaker for now. I scavenge the dog and make another run on R&D to see a single card. I would like to see more cards, but again, I'm drawing my cards in the wrong order. No R&D interfaces either, even though there are 3 in my deck. So, single access, I saw the Ike on R&D, so it's probably a very good guess that that's the Ike that went on R&D. I finally do find the R&D eye, so I'm going to snap it down, and I'm not going to run. Remember, if I suspect an Ike on R&D, I don't want to take the 2 net damage. What I want to do is to play the Sai from my hand, so I really want to see some memory in time to come. Alright, in the meantime, Beth is giving me a single credit. My opponent is doing a decent job of keeping in the 5 to 9 credit range, which is not very ideal for me. I really want to get at least a card draw from Beth. The card draw is very important given that I need to negate the net damage that my opponent is dealing me. Now, at this point, I cannot wait for my memory any longer. I can't wait for my card draw. Patron is turned off because my opponent smartly sealed up all servers. So without any good card draw and not seeing my memory on the horizon anytime soon, I decided to just wipe away the Magnum Opus given that I'm on a very good number of credits with a Temujin pointer at HQ. I'm going to install the Sai on R&D. Now, I finally get card draw from Beth. My opponent finally gets some money, and now I start making runs on R&D. It's the Ike that I expected. Do I break the first subroutine? I choose to let it fire here because I still do want to draw my memory, make no mistake. So, yep, I let the side game fire. But I bid 0. So, interestingly, I did not get the card draw and my opponent gained 1 credit from that. That's not very good for me. If I'm letting that subroutine fire, it is in my best interest to actually bid 1. So that was a mistake from me. I realized soon after that I didn't really want to draw more cards because by overdrawing, I'm forced to ditch cards like I'm doing right now. A lot of my programs are going in the bin, which is not good for me. Now my opponent plays Defective Brain Chips and Cerebral. What? What? Okay, I'll bid 2. That fails. Do I take 1 tag or 2 brain damage? Surely I take the tag. 2 brain damage is too much. So I take the tag. I am expecting to get scorched here, but instead, I find the future perfect slip from the grip of my hands. Ooh, wow, that turned real quick. That is a very good use of Cerebral Cast. This guy's deck is rad. Holy sh... Okay, well, that just happened. So, I do keep my resources. The tag isn't going to kill my resources just yet, but I'm going to clear the tag later. But first, let's run R&D and hope to get some agendas because now I'm back down to 1 agenda point. That was not very nice. I do draw with Ike this time, realizing my mistake, and I smash through the Snowflake. Lady is so good at dealing with Snowflake, and I see Hedge Fund and that was probably the worst possible card I could hit. Not only did I take an additional tag, more importantly, I lost my rumor mill. I needed the rumor mill to erase the defective brain chips. I made the mistake of making a run before playing the rumor mill. I didn't want to run last click, so I ran early on in my turn and I got punished for it because net damage sniped off my rumor mill. Any additional brain damage she's going to inflict me at this point on will do a lot of damage. I'm not happy about that. Whew. That is not good. So, in desperation, I'm hitting HQ at this point. I want some money, and I'm going to get my money. I let the first side game fire, and then use Lady for the second Snowflake. This is to save on Lady credits, because I just realized I lost both my scavengers. I've used one already, and the other one got sniped by the net damage earlier from Snare. So, my Lady is going to run out, and that means R&D and HQ are locked. Shut. Or is it? That's not the case. One very glaring weakness point, if you realize, is that of the 5 eyes that my opponent has read so far, all of them are on strength 3. You wouldn't actually think of this, but strength 3 is the strength to place your Atman against Nisei Division. It deals with Shatana, it deals with Snowflake, it deals with Aiki. That's actually pretty good. So I know that sooner or later I'm going to use my clone chip on an Atman 3. Maybe not now. Right now I'm expending my final Lady token, seeing a bunch of cards from R&D, but no dice. I still haven't found my mem chips yet. No Astrolabes, no Leprechaun. This is looking very bad. I really want to install the Hyperdriver and the Opus from my hand, but I can't because I just don't have the memory. This is not looking good for me. I'm still floating tags, by the way, because I'm very sure at this point, seeing the influence, that my opponent isn't running Scorched Earth. And exchange of information does nothing at this point, because I don't have any information to exchange. Now, Clot comes into play. Clot might be important for stopping the last clone retirement from being scored. Whatever the case is, I don't care. I'm getting deep digs, I might as well make use of it. I'm gonna bring the Atman 3 out. I was about to erase the HQ Temujin. I was going to get a new Temujin on R&D, but I realized I could just liberate the credits of the Temujin by making a run on HQ for just 2 credits, so I did just that. Before getting the Temujin on R&D, now I run R&D. So this is credit neutral for me. It costs 4 to break the 4 subroutines, and I get 4 back with Temujin. Efficiency right there. Let's see what cards we see. Hunter, Himitsu Bako, Mushinoshin, and a Future Perfect, which I steal. Yep. I'm pretty good at side games when they count. Now I remove tag, so my opponent cannot destroy my Temujin. So this should set me up very well for digging R&D for the rest of the game. Even though I'm not very rich, I don't have the Opus out, but with the Temujin pointed at R&D, I should be good. Alright, so I try to draw for my mem chip and I finally find my memory. Okay, very good. What can I do here? I still can't install the hyperdriver. I could install the Opus. That's very tenuous though, because that leaves you with no memory to install any other programs. I know there's a Himitsu Bako lying on R&D, so I do need more than just Sai, Shrike, and Atman 3. If you haven't realized by this point, at this point I'm completely zoned in on R&D. I'm not even going to consider any other servers. It's not in my best interest to run server 1 at all, given that there's so many spiky cards in his deck. Could be double price tag for all I know, and I definitely don't want to get tagged and lose cards in my hand at this point. This deck doesn't run Levy, and I'm running out of cards. Unfortunately, my opponent continues intimidating me with voters. Thankfully, I do bid correctly this time. Another clutch bid, because that saves me 16 credits on my Temujin. The fact that my opponent can disrupt my resource rig without tagging me is actually really annoying. Now I finally find the Leprechaun sitting at the bottom of my deck, collecting pots of gold under the rainbow. Now I can reap the benefits of having memory. Magnum Opus and Hydra come into action. I know my opponent cannot win next turn. My opponent needs to score a 3-pointer to win. So what I'm going to do now is to grab lots of money off the Magnum Opus to compensate for losing the compensate for the tempo loss of installing the Magnum Opus and the Leprechaun. So I can take a bunch of money, and I plan to run R&D twice. That should hopefully see out the game by stealing a big agenda, like a Future Perfect or another 3-pointer. You have to imagine that his agenda suite is probably 3 Future Perfects, 3 3-pointers, some other 3-pointer. I have no idea what my opponent would run. Probably not global food. It's not really my opponent's best interest to run food, I guess. Maybe it's food. But in any case, I'm looking for that big agenda. And I'll try to make 2 runs to maximize my excesses and try to close out the game next turn. I am aware that the ice on R&D is probably a Bako, so I have clone chip into Inti ready for use. Inti isn't the most efficient breaker at all. Bako being at 2 strength is really annoying for Inti, unlike most other gear check barriers like Ice Wall and Bernala. But it's my permanent solution. I'll take a permanent solution when there's one, especially with Opus money. I should be fine, as well as Temujin money, of course. So let's pop the high drive and go into hyper mode. Get 8 credits. With 3 clicks left, I should be able to make 2 runs on R&D and clear any tags if snare hits me. The Bako that I predicted was there, so we get the NT out. That cost me 7 credits to get through. Again, at this point, I'm not letting Aiki fire. I'd rather spend the 1 credit than to allow my opponent to gain a credit from playing the side game. Nisei Division is annoying like that. And again, this is a very prime example of why Nisei Division isn't an economic ID. Your opponents will generally be smart enough to deny you the money that Nisei Division gives you. What it does, however, is to make the ice more taxing. Against most other corps, you can simply only break the last 2 subroutines of Aiki. But against Nisei Division, you actually have to consider breaking the first subroutine as well if you don't want them to gain money. And I don't want my opponent to gain money because they're going to do things like this. They're going to play defective brain chips and burn my brain. I try to play the side game here, but I fail. So, do I take the tag or the brain damage? If I take the tag, it's almost certainly going to swap the agendas, leaving me with 2 agenda points and putting him on match point. I can't afford that. I really cannot afford that. So I have to take the 2 brain damage here. This basically means I die to snare. Whoops. So this is basically the problem with me digging through my entire deck trying to find mem chips. That's basically the story of this game. I was trying to find my memory. They were all stuck at the bottom of my deck. I pitched so many cards that could have been net damage fodder. So now I'm forced to make very dangerous runs. I'm gonna run R&D here. If I hit a snare, it's game over. Let's see what happens. We pay through. All I need is 1 agenda, maybe 2 if I hit the clone chip, clone retirement. Of course, the first card is a snare. There you go. That's the game. Even though I lost that game, you have to agree with me, that was so exciting. There was so many interesting decision points throughout the game, and I was always trying to figure out what the corp was up to. It espouses so many of the qualities that make Netrunner such a fun game, and wow, I really couldn't ask for more from that game. That was absolutely phenomenal. Well, let's move on to the deck and talk about some of the changes I made to Sim Jae-sung's original deck. There's the Artist Colony, which could have come in useful against the exchange of information. But I don't know, it seems like a dead card most of the time. Sacrificial Construct is there to protect Clot, and I guess that's okay, but I don't really think you need it. That being said, I do like having more clone chips, so I might try to tweak this around to fit the 3rd clone chip. We'll see about that. Daily Cast is good money, but I feel that with strong Magnum Opus economy and the sheer efficiency of Temujin contract, you don't really need daily casts. Finally, I swapped the Sports Hopper out for a Plascrete because I am really afraid of meat damage. In place, I've increased the consistency of seeing Magnum Opus early, and I've added a Scavenge so that I can scavenge Opus onto Leprechaun later on. This is actually quite important. The memory was my downfall this game, and while I'm not gonna load my deck with Leprechauns, I do feel like it is definitely a weak point, and it's a reason why I should in fact run Scavengers so that I can work around the limitation of Leprechaun, because when Magnum Opus is installed before the Leprechaun, which will occur in many games, it's a very awkward situation if you don't have Scavenge and you need to override your Opus with another Opus. Finally, more moddeds, because this deck needs to speed up a bit more in the early game. Sure, Hyperdriver gives you all the speed you need, but down payment of Magnum Opus is quite significant, and modded helps to ease that quite a bit. It also helps with R&D interfaces and the breakers, Strike and Lady, so I would like to run 3 moddeds if I could, but deck space is tight after all. So those are the changes I made. I will continue refining this deck. I think it is a very promising deck. And thanks again, Song, for this wonderful deck. Thanks everyone else for watching. Happy Unite running. Goodbye.